Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Prezi. This is what it's called. I'm Dan Sfera. I'm here with Chris. We've got a popular request from so many people like, hey, you made this comprehensive guide to clinical research video. It's like a 4 hour and a half video. You know that one, Chris. Took me forever to upload.
Yep.
You wrote this book, The Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research. Well, can you make something like that for somebody thinking of opening up a site?
So they want us to write a book, Comprehensive Guide to Owning a Site?
Yep.
Huh?
So,
no, thank you.
Exactly. So maybe next year, we don't know. Maybe the year after. I'm not sure. But what I am sure of is right now, we're going to do this Prezi. And you're going to have part one of a 2-part series of basically everything you need to know about opening a site and what that's going to look like for you. All the various components, everything that entails. So without further ado, and Chris, introduce yourself first for those that don't know.
I'm Chris Sauber. I helped write the book and most other things that we do in research.
Yeah, so we're going to be going back and forth over these modules in the Prezi. We try to make it as comprehensive as possible. Of course, there's always details.
Making your wife happy.
There's always other things like that. So just keep in mind that this is as comprehensive as we try to make this. This is not going to be everything. It may not answer all your questions, but it should answer about 90% of your questions.
Okay.
All right. So the road ahead, site ownership. It's a long road. Here, these are the next topics for part 2. Okay. These are the topics we're going to cover today. It goes in order this way because it's a nice design. And then these next topics will be covered in part 2.
So I see something missing.
Well, it's probably not covered in yet. It's probably going to be in one of these modules.
Well, it looks like you're doing things in order.
Yeah.
So I would agree with getting a PI being first, but second should probably be establishing a business.
Well, let's look at the Site Owner Academy. This is a good call to action, Chris. Because I did this yesterday.
Wasn't there?
I followed it in exact order.
Yeah.
So, this is actually a good advertisement. Okay, so here's our Site Owner Academy in January 2020 and beyond. This is going up to $10,000. Right now, it's only $3,000. Okay, so if you're watching this now, you're one of the early ones. Get in. You see this? $3,000. This is gonna be $10,000 January. I'm not kidding. All right, so here's the week. Week 1, find a PI. Week 2, equipment. Week 3, studies. Week 4, necessary licenses and startup. Week 5, monitoring. Week 6, contracts and budget. So that's exactly the roadmap we're following today. And then the rest will be covered. I believe that where you're referring to is like topic 12.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it, shall we? So the first thing, you said it, Chris. It's the most important. Without this, you can't have...
Yeah, you don't have a research business.
You have nothing. Okay, without this, you need this to at least be able to compete.
Compete?
Yeah, like if you want to play football, you got to be on the field, not in the stands. Well, you can't get on the field without a PI.
I would take it a step further. If you want to play football, you have to have a football. I would go, it's that far, right?
It's that far.
Yeah, you can't play football without a football.
That's right. So whatever analogy you like, getting a PI, definitely number one.
Yeah, very important.
Believe it or not, I used to be confused by this when I first started.
Yeah?
Yeah, because I was like, well, it's a good question when people would ask me, what do you need? Like, should I get studies first? And I thought, you know what? Yeah, you can get studies, but you really can't. I could get studies back then because I had a PI, so I could look for studies for potential PIs, even if I didn't know who they would be.
You stepped into a situation with a PI already there.
That's right, which we're going to actually cover in this topic of passive studies coming to you. These get very comprehensive, hence the title.
So by your experience, you couldn't really relate to not having a PI initially. Right?
Correct.
That's just part of how it works.
It's kind of like what I was born into, literally.
Right.
Quite literally.
Right.
Okay, so get a PI. Well, so let's explore. And this is why I like these prezzies. Look at that. Nice, smooth transitions, Chris, just like you like it. Okay, finding a PI. Principal investigator, preferably a family practice or internal medicine physician to start off with, and then a specialist later. And why? What if someone's listening or watching this right now and saying, hey, I have a specialist right now, and I want to start a clinic with them?
You can.
Okay.
It's just with a family practice physician, you're opening yourself or your business up to more therapeutic areas. With a specialist, you're confined to typically one therapeutic area.
That's right. The reason we say start off with a family practice, internal medicine, general medicine doctor first is because when you're starting a startup, cash flow is the most important thing. It's like oxygen. Without that, you will, like the video you showed me today, that girl can only go 5 minutes underwater without breathing, right?
Well, only? I'd make it a minute.
So without cash coming in, a startup can only last a couple of months, right?
That's right.
Before the owners run out of money.
Yeah.
So the family practice physician opens you up to the widest variety of studies that you can get. With a specialist, obviously the word itself says it's more specialized. There's not that many studies. Some of them might be more lucrative, but it's going to take you longer to get one of those studies. So having a general medicine physician, one that can do a wide variety of studies, is the best place to get started. If you're already established and you're now trying to find a specialist to add to your company, which you should do, okay, this is actually, we can talk about this here too. After you find your general medicine doctor, then you should start looking for specialists to add, because now you can apply for all those studies that require a specialist.
Sure.
Right? So if you're watching and you already have a family practice or you already have a clinic and you're looking for specialists, this applies to you as well. Okay? Must be an MD or a DO, preferably one with a private practice. That's not necessary, but you need to think
it's preferable.
It's preferred, and why? Because that's you only get paid in research if you enroll patients.
For the most part, that's true.
For the most part, you don't get grants. We're not a government. We're not a academic institution. Most of you watching this are private business people.
Right.
All right, private enterprise. So you're not going to get paid unless you enroll patients.
Well, though we did have a business partner that tried in a roundabout way to run a business, a research business, without enrolling patients. Because you do get some small amounts.
Right. In the like fifth module, we're going to talk about contracts, budgets, and how you get paid. But yeah, you get startup fees and things like that. But you can't build a foundation on that.
Unless you're getting a ton of studies. And that's only going to last for so long.
Right. And
so
this part here,
come back to you if you're not enrolling patients.
This part here must be an MD or a DO. The FDA does not say that that's required.
No.
PI can be anything, right? But for all intents and purposes of this Prezi, and you're a private enterprise, you need to get an MD or a DO as your PI. And no, an NP will not suffice. An NP would be great as a sub-I, an NP would be great as a business partner, an NP would be great for a lot of things, but not to be a PI.
Right.
All right, same thing with a PA, which is a physician assistant. And an NP is nurse practitioner for those new to the game or not familiar with the term. Okay, here's an important one. Okay, preferably not part of a hospital or academic institution or a large corporate group practice.
Yep.
Like Dignity Health, like Kaiser Permanente, like University of California, Los Angeles, or University of California, whatever.
They often sign no competes.
Not only do they sign no competes, but you're not going to be able to take advantage of one of the most important things you need to do as a startup, as far as leverage, is doing studies in their office. Okay, so may or may not have enough space for you in their office. Okay, that's not that important, but as you'll see here in a bit, it's preferable you start this way to keep cost low.
Sure.
And board certification is not required, something that's a myth.
But all of these things listed, except for must be an MD or a DO, are your ideal situation, right? Most of these things you can work with. It just makes it much more difficult.
Yeah. And you can work with someone that's part of a hospital or a large group, but you can't do it in that place. You have to do it in your own place.
Or typically, can you use their database either?
Right. Or sometimes they're not comfortable, even if it is at your place, working with you because they sign contracts, like you said.
Right.
With their current hospital, academic institution, large corporate group practice, etc.
And
right?
about 20% of studies do require board certification. So again, you would want it, but it's not an absolute requirement.
Right. So let's continue in this Prezi, shall we? You like it? It's very soothing.
Soothing.
For someone looking to start a site, they may be very anxious. This is designed to calm you down. It's a nice winding road.
But then you should have done it in blue, light blue.
Yeah, this is the default colors, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, shout out to Prezi.
Yeah.
Okay, doing studies in their office. Our favorite way to get started. And we're going to get into why right now. Then there's, as you can see, multiple options of working with doctors. Okay, here's what we're going to discuss right now. Doing studies in their office, which is preferred when you're starting out.
Yep.
And then doing studies in your office, which is preferred later on, maybe.
I don't even think it's preferred then.
We'll get
Matter
into
of
that.
opinion.
That'll be a healthy debate in that module, okay?
All right.
Then we're going to talk about how to find these guys and gals. And then we're going to talk about how to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're humans, you need to talk to them. And then
You
got
do?
to, yes, you do.
Huh.
Then you got to talk about how to pay them because they're not Mother Teresa.
We're not working for free?
Most of them don't, although some do. We'll get into that as well.
All right.
And then we get into how to keep them. And this is just for the finding a PI module. This is all just week 1.
All right.
Now, with that being said, don't let this, we're going to spend a lot of time on this module because it's so important. But some of the other modules will go by quicker.
Okay.
This one, just so you know, I don't want to scare you.
Oh.
We are doing all 6 today.
Okay.
But this one's like the longest.
Okay.
So that was for Chris. That was a disclaimer for Chris.
So we'll be done around 4.
I think so. So within their office, okay, the preferable, in my opinion, first step and maybe even final step.
Yeah.
And every step in between. So as long as sufficient space exists for a research site, more on this later, we're actually going to show you a video tour of one of our sites that Chris and I recorded 3 years ago. And we can laugh about how we've aged since then, for better or worse.
I don't think there is any better.
No, there's
aging.
better. We both lost weight.
Oh.
This is potentially the best structure for any research site. As with anything, there are pros and cons.
Sure.
So let's get into, shall we? The pros.
All right.
What's next? Pros, less upfront costs. Right? This is true. If you are going to work...
I would add a word there, substantially less upfront costs.
Thank you. Yes, so explain that part.
Well, initially when you're starting out, and I may be jumping ahead here a little bit, but typically you're going to have 2 main expenses, right? Your operating expenses for the facility and salary, right?
Yes.
That
will be covered in part 2, by the way, of
Right.
this comprehensive guide.
And if you do the salaries right, you're probably not paying anything for that, right?
That's right.
So that just leaves one expense, and that's your operating costs for running a facility. So you have 0, right? If you do it this way, you have 0 cost.
Yeah.
Versus, well, what's greater than 0? It's exponential, right?
Right.
So
it's infinitely better as a pro.
Yeah.
Working in, again, this is working inside an existing physician's
office space.
office. Okay. Now, people confuse this. I'm not saying to work inside a physician's research site. If you find a PI that's already doing research with another company,
Yeah, keep moving.
it makes no sense for you to open your research
Or
company
even talk to them.
in that, or even maybe talk to this PI, unless this PI has told you that he or she is wanting to leave.
Yeah.
Okay, but then you're probably not going to do this in that office, right? So just don't want to confuse people. This is comprehensive. We want to make sure we cover as much as we can.
Sure.
And we get these things on the phone. We probably do like 4 or 5 of these calls a week from people wanting to start sites. So in making this Prezi, I kept thinking of all those things that people keep bringing up in these calls.
Answer them here.
And now I'm going to send them this as a follow-up to the call.
Yeah, no need for those questions anymore. Here, I have something to answer all your questions.
Right. So less upfront cost, no need to personally guarantee a lease, which is probably the most important thing when you're starting out. Leasing office space, doesn't matter where you are in the country, is expensive. It's high risk. You've got a lot of personal guarantees you got to make usually. So why risk this on a new venture when you don't even know what you're doing? All right, it's much better to work with the physician in their private practice. They already are on the hook for the lease, not you.
Yep.
You can sublease from them, but I wouldn't sign anything like concrete or crazy with them. You can do like a month if they want, but you could probably get away with not doing anything and just paying them a higher percentage, which is, we're going to actually talk about that in this module too.
Okay.
But let's just go into the pros and cons. So easy access to patients from private practice is another pro. PI is on site more often because it is their office. And you're potentially able to utilize the existing equipment and staff.
Yep.
Anything else you want to add?
No, everything would fall under the cons.
So let's get the cons right now. So the cons, okay. Less space potentially.
Sure.
Because a lot of these physicians' offices are cramped. You are not in control of the layout or the staff's compliance.
And the busier you get with research, the more space you'll need.
That's right. And kind of related to that, it's a more chaotic environment. So when you go do research in someone's private practice, they already have a culture, they already have staff. The staff doesn't listen to you, you're not their boss. They listen to the physician. And if you need something, who are you? Because you're not paying them. So that's a con in my opinion. I've actually been in this situation.
So a chaotic environment can actually work as a pro in my opinion too.
Explain.
So suppose you have a very rigid office space. So it's not chaotic at all, but it's very rigid, right? So everything has to be scheduled. You can't get the doctor's time unless it's scheduled. In a chaotic environment, that's less likely to be the case. You just need to grab the doctor when he's available. Right. So if you have a patient that's there for an unscheduled visit, so there's no calendar date that's already made, you can actually get the doctor to see that patient. Whereas in a rigid environment, that may not be the case.
Yes, and it can also be a pro, the chaos for site selection visits. Sometimes
makes it seem busier.
Yeah, the monitors like to see that because it shows, okay, well, these guys have all these patients running around here, a full waiting room. So, and that's going to go into, it may not make it to their report, but it's going to definitely be in the back of their mind. Like, hey, these guys actually can recruit for this study based on just what I've seen.
Yeah, and
with my own eyes.
And CRAs are being held more accountable for the recommendations too, from what I've heard from other CRAs now. So they may actually be weighting these things when, like you said, they're not putting in the report, so it's not noticeable, but it's part of their decision-making process.
Your office, your rules.
Mm-hmm.
You like that?
Yeah, but
both setups can work.
But you have to have a PI. You have no business without a PI, right?
That's right.
So yeah, maybe your office, but they can still dictate rules, even though it's your office. Right, because they will eventually come to understand that without them you have nothing.
Right. Yeah, in that case, I just meant more of the supporting staff.
Oh, okay.
Both setups can work. You just need to choose the right one for the right situation and the PI. Okay, so like you said, obviously when you're starting out, we believe the best strategy is finding a PI with an existing private practice and piggybacking with them if there's enough space. Stay tuned for the if there's enough space part. maybe that PI is part of a larger group and wants to leave to start their own.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
in the situation right now.
Yep.
All right, with a sub-I, but the same thing applies. So we're looking to get our own office. In this case, that's the right situation for us.
But
because the PI doesn't have an office.
But this is a little different. It's like a combination of the two, in the sense that you're speaking here specifically, I think, of research sites. What we're starting is not a research site.
Right, we're starting a
It's
private practice and a research site.
So that's different.
But essentially, we're just paying for it as well. We're paying some of it, but we're just piggybacking on their private practice in our own place.
So you receive still some of the benefits to the private practice.
Ours is sort of like a hybrid, and that's the whole point of this bubble. Right. It's not just this works and that works. You maybe with one PI, one strategy works. With the other one, the other strategy works, and with another one, a hybrid works, and with another one, a various version of a hybrid.
Well, even the things we're both opposed to can work.
Exactly. So this is just guidance for you guys and gals watching. This is not like we're saying to do this. It's just both setups can work. Just there's always a right situation. There's a right choice for the right situation and PI. Okay. Let's look at the pros and cons of using your own office, shall we? Pros. You control the layout. More space, potentially. Less chaotic, which we've discussed pros and cons of that. Cons of having your own site that you're renting.
Well, that's just a high up.
Not piggybacking in your PI's private practice, but having your own that you're responsible for the rent.
So it's not just high upfront costs; it's high continuing costs too.
Right. Okay. Good. I'm glad you said that. So high upfront cost and high continuous cost.
Yep.
A longer time to break even.
Yep.
Leases usually require a personal guarantor. This was asked of us.
Yeah, we said no.
We said no, but we were able to use our company as a personal guarantor.
Yeah, established companies with good credit.
So we're still on the hook in some way.
Yeah.
Right?
Less so, though.
The doctor will have to come to your site. That's a con, usually.
Oh, absolutely a con.
It's called windshield time. They don't like that.
Right.
They don't like getting behind the windshield if they can't monetize. Okay? Sponsors will question how you're able to recruit if there's no private practice on site.
Yep, always do.
One of the modules is all about recruitment, so we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, or else we'll never finish.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're talking about how to locate them and how to find them. All right, best place, your sphere of influence.
Does that mean like going to your general practitioner for your own physicals? You hit them up?
Yeah, your sphere of influence means, well, that's next bullet. Your sphere of influence means everyone you know. You talk to them about being on the lookout for physicians.
So networking.
Okay, that's your sphere of influence. So let's say I know you, I know Carlos. I tell you guys, hey, keep your eyes peeled for an oncologist. I need one by January. And then I tell 10 more people the same thing.
So I heard something recently that 80% of all new jobs are acquired through networking. I'd say that's pretty comparable to probably getting a PI as well. You're probably going to have a much higher success rate if it's through networking.
Exactly. Exactly. That's why it's number one.
Yep.
Okay, your current physician or your friends' physicians, etc. It's kind of related to your sphere of influence, but a little more detailed.
Specific.
Then Indeed. Indeed.com. Great website for people looking for jobs. Physicians use it as well. You can pay a little bit of money to run an ad for PI. We found that Indeed works better than a Craigslist. Craigslist works okay in some markets.
Yeah. And
then in some markets it's awful.
Yep.
So just depends, but it's cheap enough to where you can just throw like $15 at it. Maybe it's $25 to run an ad.
So are these bullets in order?
They're in order from the slides of our Site Owner Academy.
So I would think LinkedIn works in better
yes,
than Craigslist.
Yes, they're not necessarily in order.
Okay.
So LinkedIn is next, and it's my favorite one, but LinkedIn Premium. I think you can do it with LinkedIn Free. One of our business partners, Shanae, does very well with LinkedIn Free version. She's able to get all her PIs that way. I have the LinkedIn Premium. I'm in a premium market for doctors in Southern California, so they're all busy with tons of opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
so it's harder to connect with them. But it still works. It
Yeah.
still works. Okay, so LinkedIn Premium's like $59 a month. You can email people directly that you want. Um, and conferences is next. So there's different kind of conferences. Okay, there's DIA, which is Drug Information Association. There's Bio, which are some of the big ones where there's bound to be a lot of physicians coming. You can also go to like local meetups for physicians. There's conferences everywhere. You just gotta look in your areas. You could look for specialty, like if you want cardiologist or if you just want general medicine. You can find conferences.
Okay, so I have a dumb question for you.
Yeah.
Because I've never even considered going to a conference to try and find a PI.
Yes.
I'm at a conference. What do I do? I mean, do I just go up and approach people? Hey, are you a doctor? Would you be interested in starting a research site with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or if you can and you can afford it, pay for a booth. Pay to get your name in the newsletter.
So
pay for like a 5-minute panel that you're gonna be on.
So what would your booth be? Would it be for your research site, or would it be starting a research site? I mean, what would the booth be?
For your research site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Assuming you have a company name and everything already.
Yeah, or just say clinical research opportunities.
Okay.
And what I would do is...
I gotta say, I don't like conferences, but okay.
Yeah, the conferences could be good. It could be good. This website, which we're actually going to click on now, openpaymentsdata.cms.gov. So everyone watching, you can just write this down. You won't be able to click on this.
Never heard of this.
Yeah, Open Payments. So it's because of the Sunshine Act.
Oh,
so,
okay. This is where you can look up what everybody makes.
Yeah, but you can see let's look for advanced search. I haven't actually done this in a while. What's our zip code here? 92408?
Yep.
So let's search 90 physicians in my area. This guy's a dentist. I mean, you can narrow it down. I'm just doing it to be quick. Look, this one, Nancy Bravo. Let's click on her. So she's not too far from here. It looks like a small place too. This is, it says she took $15.99. That can't be correct.
She's not doing well as a physician.
Right, but this is and sometimes it will show you like research payments. She doesn't have any, but like sometimes if they've done research, it will actually show you, which is actually cool. So like we have her info, right? Nancy Bravo, MD, and if I wanted to,
oh yeah, you can go over there and talk.
Well, let's show people how to do it. Okay, Nancy Bravo, MD. Let's command paste, and see like health grades is one of the next ones. Okay, so see. She's a physician assistant at Kaiser Permanente.
Yeah. So 2 stayaways there.
Yeah, 2 stayaways. But let's say she was just a PA, not at Kaiser.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can still talk to her because chances are they work with doctors.
Sure.
So now it's time to get her sphere of influence. So maybe Nancy Bravo, whoever she is, not a great person. This guy's a dentist.
But I want to step back to that for a moment. If you're going to approach a PA and you're in search of a PI, most people you're going to have to give them something for them to help you, right?
That's
so
right,
if you're wanting to get into her sphere of influence, you're going to have to promise her something.
Right, we're going to get into that next. People will have to wait to get to how we do that. Of course, they're not Mother Teresa. Okay, here's a guy. He's like a general medicine, internal medicine. So I'm going to click on him, not too far from us. Harvey Elder. Okay. He got $22. He might be So, I mean, this is how you do it. Eventually, you're going to find a doctor. There's probably was a better way to filter. But, you can do specialty as well. So, there's ways to do this. We're not going to go through this right now. I could even have gone into LinkedIn and looked up Nancy Bravo.
Well,
Matter of fact, let's do that.
Well, before you even do that, going back to that website, at least it provides you with their address, where they're located. So at least it gives you somebody you can go talk to.
Yes,
right?
and if you want to play around with the filters,
you can find a better way of looking.
more like a more efficient way. But right now I'm on LinkedIn. This is what I would do if I wanted to get her on board. Nancy Bravo, she was a PA, right? So physician assistant, or she was at Kaiser. So I'm going to know like her company name. Not everyone's on LinkedIn, but A lot of them are. A lot of doctors are. So that's just, it didn't work for the purposes of this, but it does work in general. So just use these things, okay? Healthgrades.com is another one. Shanae, one of our business partners, uses this as well.
Right.
It's the same thing as this open payments, except it's a little easier to use, but this one's more robust, okay? And it's government data. Then you do direct mail, you do door knocking. We've done door knocking. You can go to those offices.
That's what I was saying. I would do door knocking with this, right?
With this, yes.
Right? You have an address, and time to go door knock.
So combine, okay? Things in life are rarely just black or white. You get to kind of mix everything in the milieu. And then go from there. Okay, so that's how you locate the physicians. Now it's how to present to them. Okay, let's say you're door knocking. 20 of them say no. The 21st says, hey, come in. I have 5 minutes now. Which happens to us when we go out. Probably once every time we go out.
Well, yeah, once or twice.
Once or twice every time we go out. They say, come in right now. I have 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm interested.
I'm interested. So have a flyer or a brochure ready. I'm going to show you the flyer. Know and handle the objections. All right?
Yeah, let's go back to what you just said. Once or twice every time we go out, right?
Yeah.
We spend 6 to 8 hours doing it.
Yeah.
So think of all those, no's you're getting, right? You have to get used to objections because that's pretty much all you're going to get.
Yes. Get used to not having your way. Okay, so here's the typical objections they give us. Well, no, I don't want to do research because of the FDA. I don't want that. I don't want to have problems with the FDA. Okay? Or, yeah, but I don't want to risk my license. Okay, that's another myth. You don't risk your license if you do research, unless you commit fraud.
Right.
If you do research and your coordinator screws up, you don't lose your license.
Yeah, you're not going to get in trouble at all. Hardly.
The worst that can happen is you're banned from doing research.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a myth. The FDA is a myth too, because the FDA really has no teeth. They come in there and audit, and they'll say, hey, you have all these findings, you guys can't do research anymore. That's it. Then the sponsors will never give you study again. All right, there's no fines. Malpractice insurance is another objection they bring up. Well, I don't know if my malpractice covers this. Then you talk about indemnification, which we're going to get into in one of the other modules. All right, then we talk about how we can cover your malpractice for you. Or, more than likely, your malpractice already covers this, doc.
Yep.
Who are they? Oh, are they the doctor's company? Yeah, they already cover it. You just got to call them and make sure.
Yep, just let them know.
We can call them for you if you want. Or why don't you put them on the phone now? Okay. Paperwork. Oh, I don't want to do all the paperwork. I heard a friend of mine did research and, he drowned in paperwork, and I don't want to do that. You're going to hear, because like 90%...
There's some truth behind that, though.
There is truth. There's truth to every objection and every myth. There's some truth. Okay. 90% of research-naive physicians who do one study never do another one. So that means 9 out of 10 have a bad experience on their first study.
And it's usually either the FDA or paperwork.
It's one of these two. And then they'll tell their friends, because their sphere of influence, they're going to have doctors in their sphere and say, hey, I did research, never do it. If you hear anybody talking about research, run away. Okay? So this is where you got to get into educating them. Well, this is how it works. This is where you got to buy the book, The Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research.
Yeah.
Maybe bring it with you or read it out loud to them while you're there. Or, I don't know, do something. Like watch the 4-hour video I did, A Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research.
Yeah, I don't think reading a book to a physician is a good idea, but okay.
You can put them to sleep. The point is, you got to have objection. You got to know how to handle these objections. Yes, there's a lot of paperwork. This is why, doctor, you need me and my staff. We do this for a living.
Yeah, we handle the paperwork.
This is what we do. This is something called a study coordinator. This person's something called a regulatory startup specialist. This person is a CRA. It's not just you. You're looking out for patient safety.
Yep. That's
your job. You're a doctor. Let us do your paperwork and all this stuff so that you can do you as a doctor. All right. So you got to learn. If you just go in there and don't know what to say, they're going to say thanks for your time, and that's it. Then you're going to go to your next one. So know how to handle these objections. Educate yourself. Watching part 1 and part 2 is a good start. It's not enough. You got to buy the book or find a way to get the book somehow, Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research, or just watch the 4.5-hour video, The Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research. Just soak your mind with research.
I'm sure you get into it somewhere, but there's pros to doing research too as a doctor.
Oh yeah,
And
that's actually next.
And 80% of that's going to be compensation.
That's right, and the benefits are coming up next. So thank you,
Okay.
Chris. Perfect segue. But there have more objections though. Okay. Well, I don't have the time. How many times have you heard that?
All the time.
Oh, Chris, that's good, but I don't have the time for that. Look at this office; it's a mess.
Yeah.
And my receptionist is going to Mexico on vacation every month. I have to pick up the phones. I don't have time.
I'll do that for you when you have to see a patient.
That's a good objection handling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you mean you'll do it for me, Chris? Let's role play.
Yeah.
If you're into that.
I'll take the call. Well, it depends on the situation.
Yes.
I'll take the call and I'll handle it. Right. If it's somebody who wants to schedule a doctor's appointment.
So you'll pick up my phone. You know how to be a receptionist.
I do.
You can schedule.
I can.
Okay. Very interesting, Chris. But now I have another objection. Okay. Payments. Like, what am I gonna do this for free? Are we getting grants from the government?
Of course not. We both want to make money doing this.
And you make it a career out of this. How long have you been in research?
I don't know, 25 years.
Okay, so you've made a career.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to see your business plan. I want to see a detailed business plan. Believe it or not, this is on here. This is a side note now. We're not role playing anymore. This business plan thing has been getting a lot of people been asking because their doctors are kicking the tires so much that they want business plans. So guess what? Have a business plan, right? If you're one of our clients, shameless plug, DSCS, and we're going to get into more of what we do later on in these modules.
Okay.
But we will provide a business plan for all of our clients.
Yeah, you just did yesterday.
It's $1,000 a month. We get studies for you. We do your budgets. We help you with everything, SOPs, everything you're about to learn. Business plan's part of it.
Right, that was yesterday you provided.
That was yesterday, and that was like the 20,000th person that asked.
Yeah, right.
Okay, here's the PI flyer. Now we get into the pros and cons. So there's no cons on this flyer. This is all pros for the PI.
Okay.
We don't give them cons. They already have cons in their head. No need to put on a flyer.
So I would add, I don't see a problem having this flyer be two-sided and putting the cons on there.
That's a good strategy. Maybe Carlos can do that next.
And then here's, how you overcome that objection, right? Objection, and then what's the answer to that objection?
Okay, so going back to this slide and say, hey, these are the objections I usually get from physicians, such as yourself. You're no different than 80% of them ask me what you just asked me.
Yep.
Blah, 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 blah. That's my objection.
Here are the answers.
That's right. Now, here's the flyer you were asking about, okay? So the benefits of being a PI, right? Why do physicians conduct research? The projected revenue for a research site, the link between a PI private practice and a site, the bottom line, roles and responsibilities, everything's on here. If you want this flyer, email me, dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com, and I will, if you're nice, I'll send it to you, okay?
So you won't send it to the rude people?
I will not,
What?
unless they're a client.
So, hey bastard, give me your flyer. It's not
If they're a
happening.
client, I have to.
Oh.
But if they're not and they're
Okay.
rude, I will not. Okay?
Okay.
So, I mean, we can read this. Okay. But it's basically 85% of the research industry is private, industry sponsored. So we're not talking about government grants. We're not talking about academic research. We're not affected by the NIH budget cuts that recently happened. We're profit driven. So we make money. If we make money, you make money. Budgets are negotiable. They're not fixed.
For the most part.
You're an expert on this.
For the
Okay.
most part.
We get to be on the cutting edge of new treatments and technologies. You can supplement your income and add additional revenue stream to your private practice. We can get even into the 4 levels of being a PI. We've done a whole webinar on this. Level 1 is just getting started in research by being a PI. Then you eventually work your way all the way up to where you actually come up with an idea and do the studies yourself on your own IP, your own intellectual property. And you, if you're a smart business person, if you're not a physician, if you're a smart business person watching this, you can tell your physician, hey, you're going to help me build this infrastructure. If you are passionate about a particular idea or therapeutic, anything you're interested in, we can run the study. We'll know the contacts from the sponsors. We'll go to the conferences. We can fund our own study too. We're working with 3 doctors right now that are doing this.
2.5.
2.5. The third one's on Thursday.
Right.
Okay. So this is the flyer. We're not going to really go into it anymore. If you want it, just reach out. Most of the stuff we've already discussed here. Now here's how to pay your PI or your sub-I. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we get the money. They didn't have any Bitcoin, but
that's rough.
That's the future, not now. Okay, so there's different ways to pay. All right, hourly,
Mm-hmm.
fee for service,
Mm-hmm.
a percentage,
Mm-hmm.
a partnership. Okay, and there's sub bullets for these. Now,
Hourly is pretty straightforward.
hourly straightforward. They can be an employee if they want to. I've had that before, like a W-2 employee.
I would say hourly/salary.
Hourly/salary, whatever you want. So I know some sites that pay their doctors as employees an hourly rate, $200 an hour
Mm-hmm.
for when you come in, and they control when they come in.
You also know someone that paid a monthly salary.
A monthly salary, you get $8,000 a month for doing as many studies as I have or as little studies as I have.
Yep.
Okay, that's W-2. Or same thing, but you're a 1099 independent contractor. Or independent contractor 1099, you come in. I need you today to do a physical. That's $200. I also need you to review 3 EKGs. That's $70 each. So you're gonna make like what, $500 that day. Okay, to be the PI.
410. But
Right. That's the example of fee for service. You
Right.
come in, and by the way, this is for PI or sub-I. All right. Percentage. This is where Chris and I like to do it. Okay, because these two, fee for service, you're not really losing money
but
because you're getting paid for that. But
much
the
more
hourly,
complicated.
it's much more complicated to keep track. Explain why you prefer the percentage, which we're about to get into, and not the hourly or the fee for service.
Well, there's a number of pros to the percentage. One, it's simple. It's very simple. You tell the doctor, hey, I'll give you a percentage, whether, I don't like net, but I'll give you a gross percentage of each check that comes in.
Right.
I'll give you 20%. So you get a check, you show the check to the doctor, here's your 20%. The doctor can do the math off the PI can do the math off the check
Right.
for their 20%. Very, very simple. The doctor or the PI is probably not thinking you're cheating them in any way. And that's why I don't like net, because they can think you're making up business expenses or things of that nature. So it's not time consuming at all to do it this way. It also, when you're starting out, you're not risking anything. So if you're paying an hourly or a fee for service, these are things that you have to pay for before you're receiving any type of payment. So do you go into this later when you expect to see payments?
Yes, we're in the contracts and budgets.
Okay, so we'll just summarize here because it's covered further later. When you first start out, you're probably at least 6 months out from seeing your first check. During that 6 months, though, you're going to have your physician doing things. He or she's going to be active, so you're going to have to pay them that hourly rate or that fee for service. So there's much less risk involved with a percentage. Now, once you become busy, you're going to probably pay your physician more. I don't mind that if I'm risking little, right, initially. If I have no risk initially, I don't mind paying a little bit more in the long run. But that's how I am.
Yep.
And again, it's also much simpler just to pay a percentage.
And keep in mind all these things we discussed earlier about the office setup, the equipment, the staff. If you keep all these things in mind, if you're doing a percentage payment compensation strategy, because all these things
They certainly
create
add up.
the variation in the percentage, right?
Yep.
You're going to obviously pay a higher percentage if the doctor's letting you use his or her office without charging you rent, or using their equipment without charging you, or letting some of their staff do some of the work for you without charging you. So that's going to merit a higher percentage. Now, if you're doing a percentage strategy in your own office, okay, the doctor has to come to you, so obviously you're paying everything. It's all your equipment, it's your space, you're renting it out. Then it's a less percentage, right? But
Higher risk, though.
it still merits some percentage, and it's higher risk. Anywhere from 10 to 50% is fair of a gross percentage to pay your PI,
Yep.
depending on where they are in that spectrum. If you have a really good one, be very careful about this. They could become your business partner. If you have a LLC or a corporation, you make them a partner. And again, their equity depends on all those things I just mentioned, right? Like this is where your creativity can come into play, because you can get creative here with how you partner, how you pay, how you cooperate with a PI. You got to figure out what they want. You got to kind of think outside the box many times.
We have a client right now, I think, that pays a combination of fee for service and percentage.
Yes.
Right? So,
yes.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways you can go about
That's
doing
the last one, too. Finally, a combination of the above.
Huh?
Yeah, perfect timing. You're always on the right segues, Chris. You're always keeping me on time.
Yeah,
I appreciate this, because people want us to get through all the modules, not just this one. Okay. This is just week 1 of our Site Owner Academy.
Yeah.
Our Site Owner Academy is really good. I'm telling you, it's $3,000 right now. It's going to be $10,000 in January, and we're never lowering it again. We're just going to keep raising it. Okay. We're going to reach a point where our it's going to be like a Bitcoin, like the price of a Bitcoin pretty soon. Our Site Owner Academy.
You'll look back and say, "Oh my goodness, it was so cheap back then."
Yeah, in 2030 might be $100,000. Who knows? All right, you should have got in when it was 3,000. Yeah. While people were just laughing at us. Yeah. Very good analogy. Keeping them. You laugh now, guys and gals. Why would I care about keeping them if I haven't even found one, Dan? Well, this is important.
Valid point.
It is a very valid point. Keep your ducks in a row. But this is more important than finding them, in my opinion. At least when you find them and you don't find one, you don't have to worry about keeping them. Keeping them is tough.
Also
We've
a valid
seen
point.
So many PIs get frustrated with when they're a new PI. 90% of them don't ever do another study again.
Yep.
Not all of those people did it on their own. Many of those partnered with somebody.
Yep.
Right? So I've seen them leave because the payments don't come quickly especially when you're a startup. That doesn't happen.
In our experience, they drop out just as the payments are going to start rolling in.
They drop out at the worst time, and then the second PI that comes in is like loves the research.
Oh yeah, this is great. I've been doing it for 2 weeks. Look at all this revenue.
That's right. So keep them. So you're going to obtain a study. You're going to need their CV. You're going to need to put your site name and address on it. Then you get the CDAs, synopsis, feasibility. So you don't have to worry about keeping them here yet. But that's the process. Then, this is where you have to start worrying, okay? Conducting your first study. So then they got to come in and do a site selection visit. We're going to go through all these monitoring visits next. So we're just going to go through them. You'll learn all about them right now, okay? Conducting the first study. You're waiting to get that first payment, okay? If you get the study, there's some invoiceables that you can do. Study startup, we're going to talk about that. Then there's the monitoring visits, okay? Those could be very intimidating for a new PI or for any PI. Then you got to worry about recruiting the patients. Then you got to worry about PI oversight and safety. And again, most of this happens before any money comes in. So by the time the money comes in, the doctor's either already fed up with research, doesn't want to do it anymore, or has just said, hey, you know what? Forget this. Find somebody else to be the PI. All right, so work on keeping them. You've got to have strong operations. We're going to get into that later on as well. Starting right now, starting in next one, with equipment and office layout. Okay, we're going to get into in the startup regulatory and the monitoring visits. And here in the SOPs and source, we're going to talk about how to kind of keep them happy. It's all integrated into these things. Really, this whole line, I think people can see my cursor. This whole line is how you keep them happy. That was just a teaser. All right, look, this last slide, we leave you on a cliff, like a cliffhanger. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now you got to wait. You see this windy road? We're barely on pit stop number 2. Okay. It's going to get good, Chris.
It's already
Hang
good.
in there. Buckle up.
What are you talking about? It's already good.
Buckle up your seatbelt, man.
If I were research naive and wanted to start a business, I would already be very interested in what you have to say.
You would have pushed buy now on the Site Owner Academy. You would have paused this, gone buy now.
I don't know if that's true, but yeah, possibly.
Come on, man. You're not helping. Okay, equipment and office layout. The basics. 1,600 or more square feet. Temperature-controlled IP room. Monitoring room. Coordinator room. Locked IP cabinets. ECGs. Other equipment we'll discuss later. Or guess what? It's your lucky day. It might be easier to show you. Let's follow where this arrow points. Kind of points here, but this is where it's meant to point, okay? Video tour. Don't let us tell you. Let us from 3 years ago show you. You like this? And we can commentate.
We're going to take a walkthrough of a clinic. Dan receives a lot of...
This is a much younger Chris Auber. It's only 3 years ago.
I don't know about much younger. 3 years.
He's chewing gum.
So we're just going to point out what's necessary.
Here we go.
The clinic has a little bit more than necessary.
Told me to spit the gum out.
Our PI is waiting for us to move. Alright, let's go.
So, you're going to see a site tour right now, okay?
And a PI.
Hello.
You might be one of
She
these
looks
to
thrilled.
go to PI.
Now let's move on.
Alright, so what's this? This is the lobby. Bigger than necessary. You really only probably ever need to see, what, 6 people? What do you think?
Yes, because this is a research site only.
And if it's research site only,
And you might need a coordinator.
you need
Yeah, there goes a coordinator walking down the hall.
place to seat 6 people.
Coordinator just ran off.
She's scared. Restroom. I'll
Patient restroom with the urine sample, which goes to the next door.
Which is the lab.
Connects to the lab. I can't talk today.
But your clinic does not necessarily need a restroom. It can be independent of the office space. It can be a lot of buildings.
Right.
The individual units don't have a restroom.
Yeah, we're just showing you ideal.
Yes, this is ideal, but it's not a necessity. You don't need a restroom in your clinic.
This is the Chris Auber den.
Yeah, it's a mess. So
Eats a lot of chips.
This isn't necessary. This office space.
This is the business office.
Right. It's a site director kind of thing. It's not a necessity though.
Okay.
It's the PI's office again, not a necessity.
But PI is a necessity.
Yes, PI necessity, office space for the PI, not a necessity. This is the research coordinator's office. Yeah, you do need one of these spaces. So, gives them a place to work and store documents. Now, the patient binders should not be stored in a room unless it's locked, lockable.
The facility's changed, I would say, a lot, but enough.
Here we have an
Since
exam
then.
room.
But the fundamentals are still there.
Yes, those are the same. Those haven't changed.
Exam table. That's a necessity. Next, this is typically where we put
There goes a coordinator you can pick
Hello,
up.
study coordinator.
You need one of those.
We'll learn about getting one of those later.
So this is an exam room, or it could be an exam room. Right now we use them for coordinators.
Not coordinators, monitors.
Excuse me, monitors. I didn't mean coordinators. Monitors. Again, this room though is not a necessity. So far, what do we have for necessity? We have the lobby, coordinator room, exam room. Those are necessities.
This is another necessity.
Yes, this
4 more minutes, guys. 4 more minutes.
Of this video?
is the lab room.
Yeah.
They need somewhere to draw patient's
Wow,
blood
what the hell for?
and process it. So centrifuge. You have lab boxes.
There's the urine thingy connector you saw earlier.
You have the lab kits.
And as you can see,
lab shipping
there's a lot of
boxes.
space
So you need
requirements
someplace
for
to store all this
research.
material
Yes.
and actually execute the labs, right? Draw patient's blood.
So keep this in mind when looking to piggyback into a doctor's private practice. Because, look, I mean, yes, we have excess space here, but all these things are pretty much what you need.
Yep. Now, you could use a private storage facility, right? You
Right.
could.
Right.
Or your home. You even can store this stuff in your garage, a lot of it.
The stuff you don't need, like the excess.
Right.
Yeah. But just pay attention to some of the equipment, too.
Yeah. You're given a lot of
So you
stuff to
notice
store.
all of the boxes, right? So
Sometimes.
you need a lot of storage space.
Huh. Exactly.
This just an employee restroom. Again, optional.
Correct.
This is the room. This is the room we're sitting in right now. Kind of creepy.
Yeah.
conference
looks
room
the same
slash
too.
monitor
Like, almost
room
identical.
slash assessment room. I mean, this really could be used for a whole bunch of things.
I think this room's a good idea. A conference room. If it can be smaller, it doesn't necessarily have to hold a conference table. But you do want a room for your monitors. You need an independent room for the monitors. And a lot of times you'll have studies in which they have assessments that you're not going to want to necessarily conduct in the exam room.
And this?
That's the break room.
Super optional. In fact, I wouldn't even have one of these.
Yeah.
Break room? What is that? What is a break?
Yeah,
You know, where you
none of
keep
that
your
stuff's there now.
lunches, maybe sit at the table, whatever.
Very optional.
I still believe that. For no breaks.
Yeah. No breaks for the employees.
Yes.
You might
Okay.
get sued.
And then this is where at least this site stores their study binders.
Okay.
Again, you don't necessarily have to have this room.
Explain this. Everyone asks about this.
So this is the refrigerator and freezer. So this is the -20 freezer, and this is the refrigerator. So some drug needs to be stored, needs to be refrigerated.
Okay.
Some lab samples need to be frozen. So that's what these two units are for. Right now, I don't think we have a study
Chris, you lost a lot of weight.
that requires either. So
You're wearing the same
you're
thing.
just wasting energy at this time.
It's a different
Thank
shirt.
You're literally wearing the
You
same
also
shirt.
have-
It's a different shirt.
You need to know
The
the
shirt has no
temperatures, you have to
blue in
keep
it. This
a
has
log,
blue.
daily log of the temperatures for the
Similar
And
shirt.
they got to be calibrated.
They have to be calibrated.
As with all
Calibration, okay? Pay attention, guys.
He's one of the
equipment
best.
as well.
in
Yeah.
Southern California.
Yep.
Bar none.
So again, this room's not a necessity, though.
Now explain this part. Okay, that's locked,
Right.
but we're already in the room, and that's locked too. So what is that called?
Well, this room's double locked, right? So
Yes.
locking door there, and then there's.
That's a requirement.
Well, usually the way it's done though, that door's not necessary, right? It's not necessary that that door out there locks.
But they have to have double locked.
Right. So that fulfills the requirement. But
We have
in case-
triple locked,
right. So the cabinets are locked in here as well.
so that's triple locked.
So it's triple locked. So most office spaces, what you're going to have is the entry door to the room is going to be locked, and then the cabinetry's locked as well. That's double
And
locked.
what's this thing?
That's just to keep the room warmer or cooler. It's independent temperature control.
Eating an AC,
Get important
dummy.
if, depending on the climate area.
Any
Independent
climate
heating and
almost is
AC.
important, right? Unless you live in
Yes.
San Diego.
I never even walked through here. I almost forgot what it looks like. Here's another one. And here's a
This
third.
is true.
And then here's the cooling,
I think that was the last time I've been in there.
just to keep this room temperature
Well,
control.
that's what that attaches to.
Yeah, when it gets
Too warm.
warm.
So yeah, where the binders are stored, not a necessity.
This video was made
This room
shortly
is a
after we had
necessity.
moved in.
You have to have an independent drug storage area.
There's like a bunch of stuff that's just
And you can put the binders in
gone
here as
now.
well
It's
with
been thrown away.
the drug storage.
Right.
And there you go. So that's what's required for a research study.
That's the back exit. Thank you, Gross.
So that was a great video. And I think it was something that was perfect to put in here, actually. Even though it's a separate video on its own. It's so now you've seen it, right? There's no substitute for actually seeing it. It's almost like you were here with us. Most physician offices, as you can tell, already have most of these things. Not all,
sure.
but much. Okay, so all this basic equipment totals around 8 to 10K.
Yep.
Right. Here's a little infographic
Now that
of basic bare bones. You were gonna say something?
yeah, that total of 8 to 10K, that would include everything. You know, lobby room furniture. You know,
Yeah,
chairs
waiting
and-
room chairs and
Right,
chairs for the
right.
coordinator and
Right.
conference room. Okay, so here's the basic equipment, bare bones, minimum needed to open a clinical research site. Basically, just a nice visual representation of what we've already discussed and what you've seen.
Yep.
So take a screenshot here, guys, if you want, and then we move on. Okay. Here's the actual equipment list. Okay, I had to update my blog yesterday because some of the links were broken. So I put new equipment.
Okay.
Okay, so we can actually click on it for the people. They're all on Amazon. Or actually, it will take you to my website. On the clinicaltrialsguru.com, there's this page called Start Your Own Clinic, Get Equipment, right here. So that's what this is. And then it has that video you just saw. It has me a much fatter me talking about the same thing. It has me doing something here I don't understand what it is, but this was a long video. Only 6 minutes. I'm answering questions, I believe, about
$415.
Yeah, so I don't know what I'm saying, but somebody's asking a question. So here's all the equipment with links to Amazon, and I just updated this as of October 8th, 2019. So we have a double locked cabinet. Okay, we have a blood draw chair. This one the old one wasn't there. They have only this one now. Okay. ECG machine, the one we had, no longer there. Now they have this one. Okay, 12 lead, 3 channel. Of course, have to all go to Amazon. You could buy it wherever you want, but we have it all here for you. Some of these links are affiliate links. I believe I make some money off of this, but I don't know even how that works. So it's very possible that it doesn't. Okay, your office chair. So I'm not going to go through all these, but they're all there and they all work. And if you find something in the future, one of these links that doesn't work, please let me know. So that I can fix this for future Guru Nation. Okay, the rest of the links work. So let's not waste more time. Let's move on, shall we? Module 2 done. It wasn't bad. I told you this one was the
much
longest.
quicker, like a quarter of the time.
Yeah, now we're gonna get into finding studies. This is somewhat involved, but there's not as much complication here as there is with getting a PI. That's probably the most complicated, and maybe the contracts and budgets. But let's just get into finding studies, because once you get a PI, once you have an office and all the layout,
sure,
you need to start worrying about getting studies, right?
Yeah, I'd start even before the office and layout.
Right. So inbound, there's different ways to get them, right? Inbound, meaning studies that come to you because either you've done well in the industry and sponsors or CROs know you like they do us. We get, for our clients, we get inbound leads all the time. Hey, DSCS, we know that you guys, have reliable sites in your network. Do you know any sites right now that want to do this study, XYZ?
Yep.
And we say yes. So those are inbound. But then we also have a team of people doing outbound, meaning going on clinicaltrials.gov or you networking with other sites. When you're starting out, chances are it's going to be all outbound. The inbound are going to come later.
You have to establish yourself first.
You establish yourself. You have to actually do the hard work. That becomes more of a passive way to get studies. But even then, you still want to do a lot of outbound. And this is why using services like DSCS for $1,000 a month, where we get you studies, we do the surveys for you, we do the budgets and contracts, we create the SOPs, we create the source, we do everything. We're on call for you. It's only $1,000 a month to month. Can't beat that. You need this going on in the background.
You literally can't beat that.
Literally and literally, I guess. You can't beat that. Okay, so let's move on. First thing you want to do, register your PI. And here, let me read through all these because it won't come back. It's just going to keep going. So register your PI, okay, on databases. We're going to talk about that. clinicaltrials.gov. We're going to talk about that. And by the way, on my YouTube channel, there's playlists. We've done webinars on all these topics. Okay, clinicaltrials.gov. What tools you can use, how to handle CDAs and feasibilities, schedule your site selection visit, network. Okay, so we're going to get into these. Register your profile on all major CRO registries. By no means is this all-inclusive. All right, these are the big ones. There's others out there. IQVIA, drugdev.org, Syneos, PPD, Icon, Covance. Go on any CRO. Okay, when you're at conferences and you run into someone from a sponsor or a CRO, tell them, this is what I did at DIA. How do my sites get on your database? All right, even if they already are. I always have new investigators that join that are not. How do I get them on your database? Well, they'll say, go to the website or someone will be in touch with you. You got to do this, okay?
No,
we do this for our clients, Steve.
Yeah, and I've never done this, but I would assume this works. You could go on Pfizer probably and find where do I register an investigator.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Yes, you can.
And I would do that for all sponsors too.
That's right. So this way, when I said conferences earlier about getting PIs, While you're there, why not talk to some people from sponsors and CROs? They're at DAA, they're at Bio,
Absolutely.
and tell them, hey, I'm here looking for doctors, but I actually, like, I have one right now. How do I get him on your database? So you got to do that online or in person when you can. Then it's everyone's favorite, clinicaltrials.gov. Time to get those outbound leads. Okay? Spend 1 hour per day emailing or calling contacts. I think emailing is preferred. You want to follow up maybe with the phone calls, but initially, emails. Target the studies you and your PI can actually recruit patients for. Okay? Don't target studies that you have no prayer of getting patients for. We know some people who do this, but don't.
I have an exception to that.
Go ahead.
So if your PI is research naive and unwilling to exaggerate their capabilities,
Yes.
I would not have a problem taking a study that you can't get patients for.
So you're going to have to explain that a bit more.
Well, oftentimes it's difficult to get studies if you can't show experience. The more difficult studies in which it is to get patients, the more likely the sponsor is to take on research naive physicians. Therefore, if you know you can't get a patient for this particular trial, it still may benefit you to take that trial. Now, granted, you're a lot less likely if you enroll 0 patients to have that sponsor or CRO come back to you. So kind of be picky in which ones you're taking. I wouldn't take a study from say Pfizer that's the CRO is Quintiles or Akivia. I wouldn't do that because then you're kind of making a bad reputation with 2 very prominent sources of studies. But if I'm taking a study from some sponsor I've never even heard of and there's no CRO involved, yeah, I'm going to do that just so I can put that study on my PICV.
Very good. Okay. So that is it. You heard it from Chris. That's the exception. But for the most part, though. Okay?
Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part, focus on your strengths when reaching out. All right. When you're new, obviously you want to shy away from the fact that you're new. Okay. You don't lead. I see a lot of people make this mistake for some reason, probably because they're insecure. They lead with their weakness, which is kind of foolish. Like, you don't do that. You lead with your strengths. If you're a new site, but your PI treats tons of patients in the office, you lead with that. My PI treats tons of these patients. I know how to do research. We combine, and 1 + 1 equals like 5 in this case, right?
Yep.
You don't lead with your weakness. The weakness is going to come out eventually in the site selection visit. We're going to get through that as well. But lead with your strengths, okay? And site metrics. When you reach out, especially with email, tell them specifics. Don't have a generic email for all the studies. If it's a study that you want for arthritis, and then you're also applying for a study for asthma, talk about your PI's arthritis database. The next one, talk about their asthma database. Talk about the specific numbers in their database. Talk about common therapies the PI uses. Talk about their referral networks. If you have this luxury of past study performance, talk about that. A lot of people just put the same canned email. I'm interested in your study, blah, blah, blah. Well, it doesn't work. You got to be, a little more fine-tuned. This is where you do the follow-ups. You got to put yourself in there. It's okay to do the initial blast that way, but when you follow up, you want to show them metrics. You want to show them numbers. You want to show them your database, right? So just make sure that gets in there somehow. It doesn't. The first email can be an email blast, like we do for our clients, right? It's an email blast, but then it's your job. It's the client's job to follow up, to do the following up, and this is where you got to put the stuff in there, okay? And we'll do your feasibility survey for you too. So if you're newer, look for phase 4 trials to pad your PICV. That's kind of what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, which you can get with phase 2 and 3, which
as well,
even more benefit to their CV.
Right.
Before you move on, I'm curious, what's the purpose of the laptop image?
Clinicaltrials.gov. Where else are you going to do that from?
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have microchips in our brain.
Good point. Fair enough.
Fair enough. Business development tools, right? Have a CRM, customer relationship management tool. I use HubSpot to track who I reached out to. You should do the same. You don't want to reach out to the same person like 3 days in a row because you forgot. You want to put them in there and then reach out to them when appropriate to follow up. Get a professional email address with your own domain from Squarespace or GoDaddy. The website hosting I prefer Squarespace, and G Suite for the email. Okay, use something like Zymewire. Right, it's like a layer on top of clinicaltrials.gov. It's a paid product. Use that. Okay, it helps you kind of find the leads a little easier, not much more. Or outsource this to an intern, employee, or company such as DSCS. Have them watch our webinar on how to get studies. Have them, watch the webinar, and then have them do it, and then use us as well. Okay, we're only charge $1,000 a month.
Or we're just simply much cheaper than an employee. You just have us do it. You're not gonna find an employee for $1,000 a month to do this.
Right. I'm thinking if like a doctor's watching and doesn't want to use us yet, but already has a receptionist.
Sure.
And she has an hour spare time a day.
Sure.
He's gonna have her, and I would too, have her do it. But when you're ready to actually be serious about this, like use a company like us.
Yeah.
It's very cost
Not
effective.
like us.
Us, because a company like us will cost them a lot more.
Cool.
And they're not as good. All right, and you don't get the phone number of the two founders. Okay, follow up with leads. This is what we discussed. This is where you got to put the metrics in there. Okay, follow up. It's not enough to just reach out once. You got to keep following up. A lot of the answers you're gonna get when you're reaching out are, "We're not looking for sites now, but we will keep your file on your CV on file, your PI CV on file." You want to email your PI CV, by the way, if I didn't mention that when you're reaching out. Well, they're not going to come back to you just because they said that. Sometimes they will, but you need to follow up. You put them in your HubSpot and say, "This person told me to reach out in 3 months, so I'm going to call them in February." Okay. With enough prospecting and following up, you will start getting CDAs. Make sure confidentiality disclosure agreements. Make sure you return the CDA, NDA within 24 hours of receipt. There's a typo there. Receipt. Okay. We've had people complain they're not getting studies, and then we realize they never responded to CDAs. So you're not going to get to the next step unless you return that CDA to that sponsor.
And do it quickly.
Do it quickly. The next step is that feasibility survey, which we do for our clients, or you can certainly do it on your own too. Okay, they're going to ask you site capabilities, how many patients you can enroll, what kind of treatments are they on, what are their staff, who are the coordinator, who's the PI, who's the sub-I, who's going to do this, that, and the other. This is what feasibility surveys ask.
And if you have no experience, if you're research naive, I strongly recommend having us do it. Once you gain some experience, it's better off if you do it.
Very good. Get support when needed, right? Exact. Perfect site, Chris. You're always doing like the second
I
list.
didn't read that.
Get support when needed. Hire consultants like DSCS. Network with other sites at conferences. You can share leads with other sites, right? Actually, people on our Site Owner Academy are sharing studies with each other.
Yeah, they are.
This is why we're giving so much value. We're raising the price. It's $10,000.
Yes, exactly.
Because they're sharing studies, and that's good. There's so much value. So network with other sites at conferences, on LinkedIn, physically, online, in a Site Owner Academy, everywhere you can. Network with other sites.
Before you change, I want to take issue with your image.
Yeah.
So, have you ever played darts?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that dart is 0. It's not a good dart. It never hit the board.
This one, yeah. This is when people don't use us.
Oh.
This is what happens.
See, I thought it should have been more like a bullseye if you follow up with your leads.
No, when we do it for them, it does.
Then it's a bullseye.
Yeah, this is when people try to do it on their own. This is what happens, actually.
Okay.
Or somebody's eye pops out.
Fair image, then.
Yes. Schedule your site selection visit. After the feasibility survey, this is the next step, okay? You got to communicate with your PI. Be on the same page with your PI. All right, that's this number. That's this point right here. Be consistent with your PI and your staff. Be confident. Make sure your equipment and office are ready, that we discussed. Have your SOPs ready, standard operating procedures. We will talk about this on its own. It has its own module. It's that important. Okay, but spoiler alert, DSCS does this for you as well. Okay, have your CLIA IATA, and GCP. This shouldn't say GCO. Sorry,
I was
guys.
gonna ask, what is GCO, Dan?
Sorry, guys. This is GCP. Okay, good clinical practice. We'll talk about these things. These have their own modules too.
Right.
There won't be a typo there, but there was typo here. Have a copy of your feasibility survey with you if possible, so that you can be consistent, which is the next step. Be consistent with your PI and staff. So if you put on the feasibility survey that 30% of your patients take a certain treatment, and then your PI says 80% do, and your coordinator says none do, there's no consistency. The monitor's going to say, well, what's going on here?
I agree with that, but I think that's less damaging than consistency with recruitment numbers. You always want to demonstrate that you're going to get at least the numbers that you put on your feasibility questionnaire. It's okay if it's more, right? Because maybe somebody else filled it out, and now the PI is involved, and he said, oh yeah, those numbers are off. It's going to be way more than that. But if he says, no, those numbers are off, it's going to be way less than that, you got a problem.
Yeah.
So certainly with recruitment numbers, you want to be consistent to a degree.
Then be confident, okay? If you're prepared, if you've done what we've said up until this part, and if you've watched all of this part and part 2, and all of our webinars, you will be confident, okay, for your SSV. And then follow up for the follow-up letter. So when they leave, they need to send you a follow-up letter within 2 to 4 weeks, usually, with letting you know of your selection status. If you don't get that, you should start following up, because information is your friend. You want to know if the study is still something that you can bank on, or if you need to move on. All right? You need to know. And you need to know if you didn't do well and why you didn't get the study. Why? Try to find out why.
And they often don't tell you, but
they often don't tell you.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes you get like a vocal CRA that will. Okay. And network and follow up. You are now in sales. Right? So the PI is to network with medical science liaisons from the sponsors and the sales reps. So every PI with a private practice, every physician with a private practice gets bombarded with sales reps. Instead of just eating their sandwiches and coffee that they bring, you continue to do that because it's good. Who doesn't want free stuff? But tell them, I want to speak with your medical science liaison. I don't know if you know this, but we do research here too.
Yep.
Sales rep's going to say, wow, great. This gives them another reason to look good for you. They're doing you a favor, but they want to. And then look good for their company, because they're now connecting the PI, the physician, they're giving them another touch point to their company. So this is good for everybody. Everybody likes this. They love it. And then the MSL will come out. They'll do a site tour. It's not as intense as a regular site selection visit. It's more of a formality. Let's see your site. They're going to do a tour like you just watched that video. And they're going to say, okay, we're going to put you in our database, and we will contact you for studies.
Yep.
You want these. You want this going on every month. You want to meet with another MSL if possible. Network with other sites. We discussed this. Do well on the trials by paying attention to the next modules, and get inbound leads passively coming to you.
Yeah, most of that's based on recruitment.
That's right. Most of it is based on recruitment. So that's that module. So now we get into startup regulatory. Okay. So here's where we talk about GCP, CLIA, IATA, CVs, startup regulatory. This is a short module, but it's important. Okay. So this is what you need. These are necessary. Right? CLIA or CLIA waiver. You want to explain, Chris, the difference? You're like the expert in this CLIA stuff.
I don't know about expert, but a CLIA waiver states that you don't need the CLIA license in order to do whatever you're doing in terms of blood and processing. CLIA means that you need this certification. Well, I don't even know what CLIA stands for. What does CLIA stand for?
Certified Laboratory Improvement Acts?
Yes, I think that is right. Anyhow, in order to have a license, or why you would need a license, is if you, and I think it varies somewhat from state to state, because they have the federal CLIA and then they have their own state CLIA, some of them. So the requirements differ from state to state. But typically it's if you if you process certain types of lab samples on site, or if you do a number of blood draws per year, then you'll either need a CLIA or a CLIA waiver. It's dependent on those two things, I believe. Thankfully, we've never needed a CLIA.
Right, we always get the CLIA waiver. And what do they cost on average, the CLIA waivers?
It varies, right? Nevada is like $700 or $800, and surprisingly, California is less. It's like $113, I think, to be exact.
Hopefully no one from Sacramento is listening.
Yeah, right?
Okay. They're going to take minutes and tell their
we're not charging
superior. Enough. Yeah. Okay, GCP, good clinical practice, right? You need this. There are free links to this, right?
All over the place.
Yeah, just Google it. If you really need one, email me. Again, don't be a jerk, and I'll get it back to you.
Don't be a jerk.
Yeah. IATA, same thing. Free. You can get it done. Email me if you need it, or just Google it. You'll find it.
That's shipping of the lab samples or
GCP.
dry ice.
GCP, everybody needs at your site who's going to be doing anything involved with research. Even if they're just recruiting patients, have them do GCP. The PIs, have them do GCP. Sub-Is, GCP. Coordinator, GCP. You, GCP. Him, her, GCP.
If you're working on the study at all.
Okay. Intern, GCP. Everybody, okay, it's free. They have to do it. They're renewed. They should be renewed as per the site SOP. It's usually yearly or every 2 years. All right. Now, sometimes sponsors will have you, even if you have a GCP, have you do their own GCP. Just the way it is. Don't complain. Or complain. I don't really care. Don't complain to me, is my point.
Yeah, complaining does you no good.
Complain to Chris at breakthrough.org, brktHRU.org.
No.
It came at hour 1:30 something.
Okay.
I
appreciate that, man.
You're welcome, Chris. If anyone's still listening. Doubtful. IATA. Okay, that's for shipping hazardous biological goods and hazardous goods. So dry ice, blood samples, urine, those kind of things. That's IATA. That's free.
And supposedly the fine is $250,000 if you ship without this certification. So make sure you have it.
So pay attention. Don't do that. This one, IATA, your PI doesn't need. Okay, just the people doing the actual labs. Whoever is shipping the labs and signs with FedEx when they pick it up, that's the person that needs the IATA. Or on the delegation log as doing the labs, your monitor is going to check that they have their IATA. Okay, CV and license, everybody needs. All right, if everyone needs a CV, everyone needs the site name on the CV, the site address, the site email. Licenses, obviously, if the person has a medical license, they need that. If they have a nursing license, they need that. LVN, whatever nurse, phlebotomy, the licenses all go on the regulatory binder, okay, and the CVs. So startup regulatory. There's another section on regulatory, but this is just going to be for startup, which are the essential documents, basically. Have a bulletproof SOP. Okay, we're going to talk about SOPs, so we keep hearing this. It's obviously important, especially the process of consent SOP. They're going to ask you for this at the site selection visit. Okay, they might ask you for your entire SOPs. You don't have to give it to them at the startup, at the site selection visit.
You've been asked for your entire SOP?
Yeah, many times.
I've never been asked for the entire SOP. I've been asked many times for the table of contents to that entire SOP.
I've been asked for that too.
But never the entire SOP. I've never been asked for that.
I have, and when I didn't know any better, I gave it to them. But another monitor told me years ago not to do that, that I only need to give them, like you said, table of contents and process of consent.
Right.
So we've trained all the staff on how to handle that now. Because every now and then you'll get a CRA that's curious and wants to see your SOP. Okay, so understand how to handle study startup after you have been selected in order to not jeopardize your SIV, which is your site initiation visit.
Sorry, I'm going back to the last issue. Might have been a smart CRA who was thinking about opening their own site. Yeah, just get some SOPs from a site and utilize those.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get into what SIVs actually are in the next module, I think. But that's your SIV. That's the one that comes after the site selection visit, is your site initiation visit. If any of this regulatory stuff at startup is delayed, you're delaying your SIV and you're just delaying your time that you're getting revenue. So that's foolish. Don't do that. Especially as a startup, don't do that.
And research studies are competitive, so you're slowing down your ability to get patients in. And the longer you do that, the less patients you're going to be allowed to enroll.
So here's some essential documents, okay? IRB approval survey, 1572, financial disclosure form, protocol signature page, investigator brochure signature, right? The most difficult one on here is that IRB questionnaire. It's like usually 10 pages. Chris usually helps every client when they're new do their first one.
And I help them with all this stuff, though most of it's easy.
Most of it's easy. This is the hardest part, is the IRB approval survey.
1572 is the next hardest. Those are the two that most sites need help with it initially.
Right. And we'll get into a little bit of that too later. So here's some more things you need, okay? Obtain a business license from your city. Workers' compensation. PI malpractice. General liability for a business, which is like slip and fall. GDUFA. Generic drug user fee amendment. Explain this one, Chris.
So whenever a drug loses its patent, usually sponsors are jumping on, not always, but oftentimes they jump on to creating the generic in order and those generic drugs still have to go through the same testing, I think. I don't think they have to do phase 1, but they have to do phase 2 and 3. And anybody that wants to participate on those type of trials, they have to have this GDUFA number. So registration with the federal government. FEI number, that's part and parcel to the IRS. You need this number for tax purposes. And you get that by registering your company with the federal government and your state government.
Right. And the workers' comp is just if you have employees, right?
Yep.
PI malpractice, like we said earlier, it's in one of their objections. Most malpractice insurance cover research. They just don't, the doctors don't know about it. And if they don't, it doesn't cost that much more to add it. And if you're the site and you can't, I mean, you tell the PI, if it's that big of a deal to them, you'll pay for it. You'll pay for the difference. I've done that many times. It's easier than arguing with them.
That it would be.
Just say, hey, I'll pay the difference. Don't worry. They usually resolve that objection.
Yeah.
And if they still object, then I say, oh, how about I pay your whole thing, but then I'll just pay you less percentage. They sometimes say yes.
Yeah.
Instead of paying you 30, I'll pay you 25, and I'll pay all your malpractice.
That would probably work.
Yeah.
In your benefit.
I know it would. Been there, done that. All right, monitoring visits, guys. We're almost there, okay? We got monitoring visits, then we got contracts and budgets, and then a little bit of SOP and source. It's not a lot there.
Okay.
Actually, no, I didn't. Contracts and budgets where I ended, because SOPs and source I didn't actually start it.
No.
So we just have monitoring visits and contracts and budgets for part 1. Part 2, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 topics.
So you followed the Site Owner Academy. There's 12 modules.
Yep. And we're now on module 5. See? Not that bad. Monitoring visits. Familiarize yourself, folks. Please, with each type of monitoring visit. Chris, this is so important. People, like when they start a site, they do all these things we talked about, which I'm almost losing my voice. We're talking so much about it. And then they don't even know what a monitoring visit is. How can you not know?
Because you don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
You need to understand this. And this is why we created this Prezi for you. Look, this one is beautiful. You have a view of Half Moon Bay, looks like. Who knows where that is? Up there in NorCal. Looks like Northern California. Maybe Washington. Isn't this what the beaches look like in Washington?
No, the hillsides don't look like that at all.
Okay, this has to be Northern California. Anyways, familiarize yourself with each type of monitoring visit. Look to establish a strong rapport with your CRAs.
They're going to look to do the same as well, most of them.
So why should a site do this? Explain.
Because the CRA is part of your team. A lot of sites don't look at it that way, but they are. They're there to help you. Some, I think, CRCs and even PIs, they see them as the enemy. You're coming here to critique my work. That's not the way to look at it. They're there to help you, most of them. You'll come across some bad CRAs, that's not the case, but most are there to help you succeed.
Right. Having a good performance at all of these visits will allow you to get future studies more passively. If we're going to go through these in a little bit of detail, catered to a site owner, if you want full detail of this, watch the comprehensive guide to the only crash course to research you'll ever need. It's like my 5-hour video on my YouTube channel.
The book is good for
The
this
book
too.
is very good for this, the comprehensive guide to clinical research. So you can get it in different angles. You know, but this is for the site owners.
And if you want a lot of detail on all this information, then you would want to take one of our academies.
The CRA Academy or the CRC Academy,
Yep.
depending on who you are and what you want.
And the approach, yeah.
And everything. Okay, so here's the different visits in case we don't see them again in this kind of view. Site selection visit, site initiation visit. These are in order, okay? Except for these last two. These are not applicable in some cases, in most cases. Site selection visit, site initiation visit, interim monitoring visit, closeout visit, booster visits, and audits. Not that common, but they occur sometimes. Right?
Yes, they do.
So let's get into it. Site selection visit. This is the one people get nervous, right? They don't know how to react to.
Yeah, their business's base is part and partially based on this, right? If you do poorly at a site selection visit, you most likely are not going to get a study. So yeah, so I can see why you'd be nervous.
Now you also say this last point. This is if Chrisism. Okay, not a criticism, a Chrisism.
Yeah, it's true.
It is your study to lose at this point.
And it is.
Okay, so what do you mean by that?
Well, the sponsor or the CRO, all they've seen so far is paper documentation on your site. So not a whole lot invested, right? Somebody's reviewed the documents. Still, not a whole lot invested. Once they're sending somebody out to your site to have a conversation with the PI and staff, and they have to pay for that airfare, they have to pay for that employee salary, they have to pay for all the expenses associated with that. They're invested in your site. They intend to give you that study. Basically, they're verifying what they saw on paper. That's what they're doing. The problem is when they can't verify what's on paper, what you placed on paper, they can't verify that, then you may lose the trial. But they intend to give you the study.
Yeah, so rest assured, this is the whole. We preface this by saying, yes, this is a very nervous time, especially if it's your first time doing a site selection visit, and you're a startup and you've already invested money and time into your venture. You want to make sure you don't screw up. Well, make sure you have everything in order. You have no excuse now. You saw us. We watched it with you again, a site tour. I went through most of the equipment with you, where you can get the equipment. We're going to talk about the SOPs later. I talked about CLIA, CV, GCP, IATA, all those things. Equipment and temperature logs. Okay, so if you don't have a temp log yet, just keep one. Start one now. Start one today. Even if you don't have drug there. Right? Just start one. It's GCP. If you don't start one, then they're going to say, why don't you start one? Your SOP says you have one.
Now, those temperatures should be based on a calibrated thermometer, not based on some willy-nilly thermometer you have hanging in the hallway.
Yeah, calibrated thermometer like you saw on the link on my website and like you saw on the video tour. Right?
Yep.
They were there. They're going to review the patient database and your population. Basically, they're reviewing your feasibility survey that you turned in, right? They want to see your site capabilities. They do want to talk to your PI, all right? The CRC should be on the same page with you. Maybe you are the CRC. I recommend you, the owner, should be the CRC. Unless you just cannot commit to it, then you should hire a CRC. But wait till the last possible minute you can afford to start hiring a CRC, because up until this point you don't need a coordinator, right? You need a coordinator maybe at the site selection visit and beyond. You don't need one, and even you don't need a coordinator until really you're about to have your SIV scheduled. But if you want a CRC to be consistent and you want to go out on a limb that you're going to get the study, have a CRC for your site selection visit.
No.
But I recommend that you be the coordinator. As
No.
the site owner, you the one listening.
You don't need a CRC, but you do need to display who's going to be responsible for those activities. So it could be the PI. Just recently, I spoke with one of our clients who the PI is the CRC. I didn't think I would ever hear this, but it happens, right? So somebody needs to demonstrate that they'll be responsible for those tasks.
Yeah,
So
someone needs to be listed as the CRC. In rare cases, it is the PI who is also the CRC, but that's somebody is a CRC in that case too.
Right.
So you do need one. Okay. I recommend the owner, if you have time, to do it. All right. Some don't have time. Some are CRAs, clinical research associates, that can't quit their job, but they still own the site. So then they have to hire. We know many people like that.
But you can do the site selection visit as you're being a CRA. You just have to make your schedule fit. Right?
That's right.
You can still, pretend
But
to be
for-
the CRC.
But for the busy CRAs, it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just keep that in mind, okay? Next one is the site initiation visit. If everything goes well at your SSV, which it should, okay? Now is the SIV. Now you already have the study. You already did the contract and budget, which is the next module we're going to get into. You're going to verify, the monitor is going to verify all regulatory documents are completed and filed. This SIV is a lot of work for the CRA, not that much work for the site. Okay, I mean, the PI needs to get trained on the protocol. Coordinators are going to get trained on the protocol by the CRA at this visit. The CRA and the coordinator are going to be working a lot to make sure all these things are done, okay, that the reg binder is complete and up to date, that the site training log and delegation logs have been complete, that the site has the investigational product, that the site has lab kits, that the source documentation templates have been created, that EDC and IWRS access is available for all the users, IRB approval, contract and budget. They're just making sure this is happening. There's no pressure for you, the site owner, at this visit, but it is a relatively long visit for your coordinator, and it will require about 30 to 60 minutes of your PI's time to do that training, so keep that in mind. Okay, now an interim monitoring visit. This may require only 5 minutes of your PI's time. Sometimes the PIs don't even show up to these interim monitoring visits.
Yep.
Usually it's 20 minutes. The monitor at the end of the IMV will discuss the findings with the PI. These occur within the first 2 weeks of the first randomized subject, and subsequently every 4 to 8 weeks, depending on your enrollment. They're going to do source data review, source data verification. We discuss what this means in great detail in the book, Comprehensive Guide to Clinical Research, as well as in the other 5-hour video we have, the only crash course you'll ever need in clinical research, which is on my YouTube channel. Investigation of product accountability, regulatory maintenance, ongoing training, recruitment progress, deviations. This is an important thing for the site owners to understand. These monitoring visits typically trigger a site payment. So you want to make sure that the monitors are actually doing what they need to do in order for you to get paid. All right. So try to find out, maybe from the monitor, maybe from someone in contracts or the project manager, what triggers the payment. How do we make sure everything works smoothly in regards to our cash flow? All right. Then the closeout visit. This is very easy for the site owners. You do almost nothing. The coordinator and the CRA again are doing most of the work. The IRB, it's like the opposite of SIV. The IRB is closed out, signing off on the delegation log, returning study equipment, final IP reconciliation, final database lock, EDC signed by PI, study record archiving, final payment to site. Usually and we'll learn in the next section about contracts and budgets, the last section for this part 1 of 2-part series, the sponsors usually hold a percentage of the payments until after closeout visit to ensure that the site is compliant with all these things. So pay attention to that and make sure that you get that hold released. Booster visits are not always done, but usually done due to low enrollment. So usually someone other than the CRA actually conducts this visit. Usually it's the project manager or somebody in charge of recruitment at the sponsor or CRO. Basically, they're encouraging the site to recruit or find best practices that may work. And it's kind of seen as an informal warning to recruit or you'll get closed out. Okay, because sponsors lose money by having a site open but not enrolling because they still have regulatory, they still have to monitor that site. So they're losing money if you're not enrolling. Audits, the most important thing, don't panic. Okay, the audit can be triggered by a sponsor, IRB, CRO, or FDA. It's just part of doing business. It's part of owning a site. It's unlikely that you're going to get an audit on your first study, but who knows? I suggest you don't enroll that many patients.
Stay on the top
in your first study. Stay out of the top 3 because you run the risk of getting audited if you're a high enroller.
And you find this information in the weekly newsletter or monthly newsletter.
In the monthly newsletter, or you can just ask project manager, ask the CRA, how are we doing as far as enrollment compared to other sites?
Yep.
Okay, you don't want to be top 3 enrollers on a brand new study when you're just learning the ropes. Okay.
Yeah, you're gonna really scare your PI when you talk about an FDA audit.
Yeah, talking about keeping them happy. That's like one way not to do it.
Yep.
We know clients who've done this.
Yep.
And they still have their PI, thankfully. But it worked out for them. It may not work out all the time. So that's the monitoring visits. Last section for this Prezi, okay, is the contracts and budgets. Hopefully we're still recording. Looks like it's good. Last section, contracts and budgets, which Chris Sauber is really an expert.
Hardly, but okay.
Okay, we preface this with we are not attorneys.
Yes, that's a good preface.
I know I'm not. I don't know about Chris.
I like playing attorney, but no, I'm not an attorney.
Yes. These are contracts and budgets are meant to be negotiated, right? You should learn how or outsource.
To us.
DSCS does this for its clients at no additional cost.
This is true.
$1,000 a month for everything we've already discussed: getting studies, creating SOPs, negotiating contract and budgets, being on call, everything.
And I can almost guarantee we'll do a better job than you would if you're new to this.
Easy. So there's 2 bubbles here. Okay. A lot of talk. I'm expecting a lot of talking from you, Sauber. And we're going to wrap up this part 1 of 2.
Sure.
Okay, so first one is the elements of a CTA. And the
Okay.
next bubble is the actual budget itself.
Okay.
So let's get into the elements of a CTA.
Okay.
Have at it, sir.
I can't read it from here.
Well, scoot closer.
Where are you going?
It doesn't bite.
You're not allowed to leave.
I'll step out for a little bit.
All right. So some key CTA elements. The study itself. So I didn't design these slides, these Prezi slides, so I may be talking out of order here. But I believe what Dan means by study is essentially the schedule of assessments and anything else that's kind of quirky outside of that. You need to be aware of the work involved in the study, which again is laid out in the schedule of assessments. But every once in a while, have some additional work that's not there. So be aware of everything involved in working this trial, so you're compensated fairly. Human studies committee review. So typically, you're not going to have a local IRB unless you're a hospital or an academic site. But if you are, then you need to be compensated for your local IRB or review committee. And they will compensate you for that, approving the study and so on. All the elements involved in having these ethics committees. Confidentiality. What do you mean by confidentiality?
I took these from your slides in the Site Owner Academy, so it probably means the sponsor wants you to keep this confidential.
Okay. So you do initially sign a CDA before even seeing anything about the study, other than maybe the therapeutic area. You sign a CDA, then you're given typically a synopsis to the protocol, or maybe the actual protocol and the questionnaire. So that would still apply throughout your work on the study. So you want to make sure not share information or whatever else is protected in your confidentiality agreement. You don't need to be sued by the sponsor. Highly unlikely that happens, but don't take a risk. Intellectual property, it's kind of the same thing. You want to protect the property of the sponsor.
So from these, which ones of these, because there's more, these are just some. These are quite complex. They have like armies of lawyers creating these.
Sure.
Which ones of these are standard boilerplate, you don't touch, and which one of these do sites actually can negotiate? Okay. Because that's the only thing we're really interested in.
So I may have been looking at this
for
wrong.
like 15 years.
Okay.
And I've only like negotiated a few things from these.
So liability insurance, you may want to negotiate. Oftentimes you'll have a sponsor ask for just ridiculous amounts. The typical liability insurance is $2 million. It's not. I think for us, we just recently changed it to $1 million, $3 million. And it only costs like $3 a year more. So check to see with your insurance agency what it would cost to meet whatever requirements the sponsor or CRO are demanding.
But what's typical nowadays?
I think it's $1 million, $3 million for the most part.
So they require, what does that mean?
So it's $1 million per incident, $3 million in aggregate in total. And that's usually what they want to see. And that's the same amount as malpractice. It's usually $1 million, $3 million. And there too, sometimes we'll ask for more. That's different though. If you want an increase in that on the physician's malpractice policy, it's expensive. So that you want to fight if they're asking for more. Just that's not standard, and this is what we can provide. They'll usually agree. And then certainly the compensation, as I had mentioned with the study and the study design. You want to make sure you're being compensated fairly, so you can negotiate the compensation. And then indemnification, I don't see it on here. Is it on there? Oh, there it is. There. So
very important.
Yeah, that's something you want to make sure that's included in your contract. It indemnifies the sites as long as they follow the protocol from any lawsuits. The sponsor or CRO will take the brunt of that. And pay for any associated fees and outcome. Other than that, payments. Sometimes the payments, I've seen contracts of 6 months. They only pay once every 6 months. Usually you're not going to want to agree to that. You can ask for monthly. Some do not offer that, but at least quarterly.
I want to add on the Guru page where your chances are you might be actually looking at this, but if you're not, go on the Clinical Trials Guru, click the option open my own site or open your own research site, and then underneath this video you'll see this video, and underneath it a bunch of other videos. One of them is an entire webinar on negotiating contracts and budgets. And if you're on YouTube, on my channel there's a playlist. And the playlist are all the webinars we've ever hosted, and 1 or 2 of them are actually negotiating budgets and contracts. So we actually go in depth for like over an hour on just this bubble and the next bubble. But for this is already a 2-hour video for part 1. And we're trying to keep this comprehensive, but you can't possibly go through everything in 2 hours. Right. So those are the important things Chris discussed, and then the budget. Okay, should be an Excel file. So this is the interesting part. The contract part is not so interesting.
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 elements that you'll change.
That you'll actually change, right? I used to just change indemnification. Like I would look at these and not do anything except change it in the indemnification, make sure that we're indemnified.
Right.
But with your expertise, we're at least doing the other ones for the sites, but a lot of these things you can't change anyways, and it's not interesting.
It's not necessary to change either.
This is where it's interesting. This is where it's going to make an impact on your pockets. This is where it's going to make an impact on your the sustainability of your business. Okay, so this is where it's interesting. Okay, the budgets are an appendix or an exhibit of the CTA.
Typically, yes.
Okay.
Not always, but typically, yes.
Typically. So it should be an Excel file.
And
Sometimes
that's
it's on
less.
a Word.
That's like 50% now. Literally, that's like 50% of the time now.
It's becoming less,
Yeah.
right? And why is that? There's a lot of theories.
Well, I believe it's because they think when sites see the bulk payment, which is all they're showing you now, it's like, oh, that seems like a fair amount, opposed to individualizing each item that's involved in conducting the trial. Then when you look at it, you think, no, this, whatever it might be, ECG, right? It takes the physician and whoever's handling it patient-wise, putting the electrodes and such on the patient. This total time for this might be 45 minutes. I don't know. But let's say 45 minutes and a compensation of only $75. No, that's not fair. We need more than that. So I think sponsors and CROs have learned that when they itemize everything, sites are much more likely to take issue with certain items, right? Whereas when I see a bulk payment, it's like, oh yeah, that seems reasonable, $1,500 for this visit. I believe that's why. I could be wrong.
Yes, and this is why this is where it gets juicy. You may have to break it down into individual visits and individual assessments.
Yep. You always
because
should.
a lot of times they don't do that.
Yep.
Increasingly so, like you said.
Yep.
See, back in my day, when I negotiated budget, I haven't negotiated budget in like over a year.
Mm-hmm.
I do it every now and then, like when you get super busy or when I just want to stay active, I'll do one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like they used to all be broken down into visits and their assessments.
Yep.
And now they're not. So that means you got to go look for the protocol, okay, and you got to break it down.
Yep.
And this is hard work, and they know it. They being the sponsor of CRO, know it's hard work,
Mm-hmm.
and they know that a few, or maybe half, won't do it. So then they'll accept what they're being offered.
Yep.
But the smart ones, the ones that hire DSCS,
Mm-hmm.
or the ones that pay attention to this webinar,
Yep.
will know how to do.
Yep.
Right? And this is not a webinar. This is a Prizzy. I keep forgetting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, typically, the initial budget that you receive will be 10 to 35%, or even more, lower than what an expert could negotiate.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
I should hope so. I think from what you're telling me, I created this.
That's right. These are great slides. Know the industry standards and fair market value. Expand on this. This line is so simple, yet so important.
Well, usually you're going to justify your request with this language, right? I'm requesting this amount because this is fair market value or industry standard. I think those are interchangeable. Fair market value is the industry standard. And oftentimes you'll have sponsors of CROs throwing this language at you as well, in which your request, they will say this exceeds fair market value. So you need to be aware of what is fair market value. You need some experience, right? Your first time doing this, you have no idea what fair market value is. But after you've done it a while and you've seen the same item half a dozen times or more, you'll have an idea of what fair market value is. And you're not usually going to get outside fair market value.
And this is one area where if you don't know and you network with another site that's not a competitor, they'll be more than happy to tell you, hey, what do you charge? I have like 5 sites I talk to. They're not even clients. They're just people I text that I've known throughout the decade, and even last decade. Hey, what do you typically charge for an inpatient visit? I just had this conversation last week with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is what I do. What do you do? Okay, this is that. So if you don't know, you can ask. This is why networking is important. This is why we integrate all those things we talked about before. Conferences, networking, LinkedIn,
Yep.
Site Owner Academy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's only $3,000 now. January 2020, it's 10.
10. Wow.
Yeah. So this is where like sites are willing to help one another because it helps everybody. It helps the industry
Mm-hmm.
as a whole, right?
Yep.
Overhead. Have a policy, right? The average is 30% and ranges from 10 to 40.
Mm-hmm.
Sites will share their overhead policy with you if they're not competitors. We will. We'll share it. We give it to our clients.
Yep.
Okay. Get that in there. Okay. Know the sponsor CRO maximums if possible. How do you know if you found the maximum? They're not going to tell you.
Well, of course not. But after you've negotiated enough budgets with them, and if you keep just pushing the limits, you'll eventually know what their maximums are.
What are the telltale signs of that?
When you've asked for the same amount twice, and they just say no, exceeds our fair market value, I think they're being legitimate.
Okay, so it's just trial and error, basically.
Yep.
Know their objections. What are typical objections when you want to increase something? Like increase a line item.
Well, first and foremost is the fair market value. But even then...
That's their main objective.
Yeah.
And what do you argue around? How do you argue that?
Well, it depends. If they're being legitimate, right? I usually will accept so long as it's within a certain range. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes they do come back, and I've seen this more and more, in which it's very much not within fair market value, and they're saying it is.
And you've developed a
spreadsheet.
Excel spreadsheet with all these assessments that you use for our clients.
Yep.
Okay. Do you change that every now and
then? Not for the most part. Just because I do it so much, it's not necessary. I probably should, for if I ever don't do it.
To account for inflation, maybe?
Well, no. Why I don't do it is because, you just develop an ongoing tally in your head,
yeah,
right? How things are changing. Okay, it's a little bit more than that now. I just know.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll change that for us. We'll keep that updated. Push for 100% screen fill reimbursed. All right.
You're not going to get that too often, but yes, do push for it.
And this sometimes is in the contract, not the budget. So pay attention to where it's written.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they'll pay you a ratio. 3 screen failures for 1 randomized.
Or the opposite.
1 randomized. Or 1 screen failure for 3 randomized. It depends on the study. Okay. Yeah. Your goal is to push for 100% reimbursed. Sometimes you get it. We have a study right now. That's the only money we've made. A bunch of screen failures. I'm glad that we pushed for that.
Yep.
Okay. But they understand that's a 90% screen fail expectation in that study. Again, you're not going to get that in one where they expect only 10% screen fail.
Right.
Line items not included in the assessments. So you got to put these in there, right? PI fee, CRC fee, etc.
You'll oftentimes see that this is not there.
What else is there? Because I've heard like the hidden invoiceables, like a pharmacy fee, a monitoring change fee.
Yeah, there's all kinds of fees.
Amendment fee.
Matter of fact, every once in a while I'll see a fee from a sponsor that I've never encountered, where they're offering this fee.
Have we done a protocol amendment fees?
Oh yeah, all the time.
But these are invoiceable, so somebody has to keep track and invoice it at the end of the study.
You need to have a system to know what you've invoiced for and what you haven't.
And what you use is Excel for the sites we own.
Correct.
Yeah. And know the insider tips and tricks, basically what you just described. Have a system, know this, know that, know all these things. You've got to learn a lot by doing this.
Yep.
Okay.
Trial and error.
Let's see if there's another slide. No. So part 2 will be the SOP and source docs.
And a lot of topic 6s.
As well as topic... so that will be topic
6.
No, that one's topic 7.
6.
Let's count. 1, 2,
There's 12.
3,
I counted them.
4, 5, 6. So this one's topic 7, then 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yep.
So next time will be part 2. I don't know when, but it'll be a joy to create those prezzies.
A joy.
Thank you, Chris.
Next Tuesday.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Maybe we'll record it next Tuesday. That's right. Catch you all later. Bye-bye.